Hey, everybody, it's State Senator Mallory McMorrow. I just wanted to hop on really quickly and give you an update in the wake of the storms of the past couple of weeks and the DTE outages that we know hundreds of thousands of people across Michigan have been experiencing, especially in our district. This morning, I met with Trevor Lauer, the president of DTE, in person in the district. And first of all, I want you to know that we printed out and brought copies of every single email that all of you have been sending us about your own outages, your experiences, your pain points, the fact that many of you have had outages for days from the past storm and the most recent storm, so that they have those in person. We wanted to make sure it was really important that your voices were heard directly with him. Additionally, we had conversations about a number of things, making sure they understand that this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable to have power outages as long as they are. One thing that I expressed that many of you share is most people are understanding and reasonable to a point. It's one thing to lose your power for a day or two. It's another thing to lose power for 4 or 5 or 6 days, or to just get it restored and lose it again. We know that many of you have spent your own money on hotel stays, generators, gas, food, losing everything in your refrigerator only to have to buy it again. We know that many of our constituents have vulnerable situations with medical equipment that needs to be powered, medications that need to be refrigerated, people losing breast milk. We've heard it all. We have reiterated all of that. You have seen me share that I have been asking the legislature to hold hearings with DTE and consumers and the Michigan Public Service Commission in the wake of these outages and these storms, to understand what happened, why it happened, what is standing in the way of improving this system. And those hearings will be held in both the State House and the State Senate in the Energy Committee. But want to share some of the conversations that we've had included. Trevor acknowledged that it does make sense for undergrounding in certain areas of our grid. Something that we know is that undergrounding is expensive. To underground everything statewide would be incredibly expensive. But we know, and they acknowledged, that the cost borne by constituents, especially those who are out 4, 5, 6 days or out very frequently, is significant as well. So they did commit that undergrounding in certain areas, especially some of our densely populated suburbs that are much older, makes a lot of sense. So we are looking at, are there hurdles standing in the way of that to facilitate some of that process moving forward? Some of the other things that we discussed were creating a better system for residents who are especially vulnerable. Is there a way that residents can self-identify within the system? Because although our office worked really, really hard over the past few weeks to try to escalate some of you who reported particularly vulnerable situations, that's not a good system. It can't be just the people who think to contact their state senator, who then calls somebody at DTE who tries to escalate a particularly vulnerable resident. We're happy to do that, but we know that it leaves a lot of people in the dark and in vulnerable situations. So that's something that we will look to find solutions for. Is it something through DHHS, for example? Is it something where customers can self-identify so that those who are particularly vulnerable, whether it's seniors, those who have medical equipment needs, et cetera, can be the first to either get a generator delivered to their home or placed on the grid? Other things we talked about are targeted hardening of the grid in certain areas, something that happened not in this storm, but in the last storm here in Royal Oak in the summer, is that everything went out. Every municipal building, every pharmacy, and we know a number of you had issues where your prescriptions were not being refilled. Your prescriptions were being sent out to other pharmacies. You didn't know where they were going because all of our pharmacies were down. So looking at within each municipality, are there certain buildings like community center, a school, a pharmacy, a police station, et cetera, that should be extra hardened, maybe with a larger pole, maybe with a steel pole or a cement pole instead of a wood pole, to make sure that they are less susceptible to weather outages. What else did we talk about? Also, creating stopgaps within the grid to make sure that if an entire line goes down or a section of residents goes down, is there a way that if there is an issue in part of the system, that there is a stopgap in that line? So maybe instead of, let's say, 10, 20 people go out, maybe there are 4, and we can stop the rest of that line. There's technology that allows that to happen. There are boxes that can be placed within the lines to create that stopgap. It does cost money. So making sure we're looking at, is that a solution that is more cost effective in the long run? And how can we get this done? So it was a productive conversation. I wanted to keep you updated on the conversations that we are having. As I mentioned, hearings will start to take place this week. Something that is important to me is that these hearings result in tangible plans and action. I don't think it's good for anybody to bring DTE or consumers and the MPSC in front of a committee just to vent at them without actionable steps afterwards, whether it's legislation, whether it is changes within the MPSC, whether it is additional accountability metrics that we need to put on the utilities to make sure these investments are made. That is my commitment, is looking for solutions so that we are doing what it takes to update the grid, to make sure that we are better prepared to withstand extreme weather events, whether it's an ice storm, snowstorm, wind, rain, whatever. This is the new normal. We have to be prepared for it. And the frequency, and more importantly, the length of these outages has to be improved. So that's the update that I wanted to share with you. Thank you, everybody who has contacted us, who has shared your stories. It really helps us in being your voice and communicating back up what the real issue is. And we will be in touch with next steps.